Welcome to the October National Virtual Gathering with the National Ladies Homestead Gathering. My name is Nancy Anderson, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Media Director for NLHG. We're a nonprofit organization where women come together to share and celebrate all things homesteading. So whether you're raising goats or you're starting a garden or canning, there is absolutely something here for everyone. Our purpose is to empower women through homesteading, and our mission is to share knowledge, build community, and grow friendships. And we do that here every month virtually with our national virtual gatherings. We also have 26 local chapters throughout the United States where women can gather together and share all these tips in person and just grow those friendships and relationships and have so much support within the local community. So if you're watching this replay later on our YouTube channel and you want to get involved, I want you to head over to www.nlhg.org and you can join our community. It's absolutely free and we'd love to have you join us. So I'd like to take a moment to thank all of our VIPs for joining. They are our very invested partners, and they partner with us for $35 a year, and it really helps cover things like our insurance and marketing and our website. Because we are 100% nonprofit, the VIP partners are very important to us and special, and they help us keep bringing this community to so many around the United States. So speaking of VIP discounts, this month's sponsor spotlight is Chelsea Green Publishing. Since 1984, Chelsea Green Publishing has been the leading publisher of books about organic farming, gardening, homesteading, local food, natural building, restorative living, sustainable economics, and more. In 2012, Chelsea Green became employee-owned, and a link to their website will be in the chat. And I also want to let all our VIPs know that Chelsea Green has generously offered a 35% discount to our VIPs. So all of the details and the VIP discount code can be found by logging into nlhg.org. And if you want to join as a new VIP today, that area also has a spot for you. So we have a new design and it's available in our swag shop. So I want to show you, this is the shirt, and this is our new design. And we will have this through the end of the year. And then we're also going to be launching our holiday merch here this month. So keep your eyes peeled for that to show up. Now, what I want to do is I want to share my screen with you because I want to show you how to access some of these areas in our Mighty Networks community. So let me go over. Okay, I hope this is working and you guys can all see this. So this is our Mighty Networks community online forum. It's kind of like other social media forums where you have an account and you can connect with other ladies in your local chapter. You can find out all about the local chapter events, what's happening in your neighboring chapters. I live in North Idaho, and I'm very fortunate to have 3 chapters within my area here. So there is always something going on. So each of the chapters has a channel. Let's see, let's go to Bonner County, Idaho. So this is where they share all of their events, all the information. The members can connect with one another. It's a fantastic place. So if you haven't joined Mighty Networks and join into this community, I highly recommend it. Also, as far as the VIP, on the left here, if you navigate on the left-hand navigation bar, you'll see the NLHG VIP vault. And so I wanted to tell you that we have some new resources in here. For those who aren't VIPs, you probably haven't seen this before, but by becoming a VIP, you get access to so many resources. The first part in here, as you can see, are all of our national virtual national virtual gathering replays. I post these in here immediately following. Like tonight, this will be posted by tomorrow, and you can watch the replay in case you missed it. But we also have some other resources. We have articles and handouts. Here's Exploring the Power of Garlic, Foraging, a Connection with Nature, that was contributed by the wonderful Suzanne Tabert. There's so much information in here. One of the newest addition is our new Homestead Planner, a journal of the journey. VIPs, head over and check that out. It is a very valuable resource that will help you plan your homestead. I also want to show you, this is the swag shop. So if you are over here, just keep going down on the left-hand side, and towards the bottom of the navigation bar, you're going to see swag shop. So if you click on it, this is what the swag shop looks like. So you can see here is our new logo with all the shirts and sweatshirts and everything we have to order or offer. And then here is our traditional logo with everything that is available. So there is a lot over here. Now, if you see, this pops up right now, only 5 days left, 20% off everything. So I have ordered my last 2 shirts. I've caught one of these sales, and basically the 20% off covered my shipping. So I was really happy to see that. So I wanted to share that with you guys. So let me stop sharing that. Go back. Okay. And so what I already told you about the VIP planner. The replay will be in the VIP vault by tomorrow, and then it will be posted in 2 weeks to our YouTube channel. And if you haven't been to our YouTube channel, head over to YouTube and you're going to put ampersand NLHGORG. And we have over 45 of these national virtual gathering replays available there for you to watch. So now I want to introduce our guest speaker, Amy Hamill. Amy has always been fascinated by fungi. When she was little, she was always collecting specimens from the woods. The first biology lab she taught was fungi classification. While her degree is in plant science, she was fortunate to take some excellent mycology courses in grad school. Now she lives on a farm with her family, and while she doesn't actively study mushrooms, she's still passionate about them and has combined them with her love for photography and cooking. Her business is called Cowgirl Honey. It's a way to share one of her favorite farm products, beeswax. So she still collects mushrooms for fun, but she doesn't grow them as a business. So we will hold a Q&A session during the last 10 minutes of Amy's talk. So if you want to go ahead and head over into the chat and just start putting your questions in the chat, we'll be collecting those along the way, and then I will ask those to Amy during the last 10 minutes of the session. So anyway, let's welcome Amy.
Well, thank you very much, Nancy. I don't have too much to add to that because that was such a great introduction that pretty much summed it all up. I do love mushrooms and fungi. My background is mostly in classification, more on the whole fungi level than just mushrooms. And for this talk, we're going to focus on what we call a mushroom or a toadstool, looking at what you can find to eat or what you can grow, that type of thing, rather than diving into the science behind it. We're just going to look at more. I want you to have confidence to identify a mushroom or just how to handle them. So with that, let me see if I can share my screen. And Nancy, can you still hear me? Can you see that? Are we good?
Yes, I can hear you, but I cannot see your screen.
You still can't see my screen. Let me try entire screen instead of window.
Okay.
Did that work?
Yes, you are good.
Okay. So as Nancy said, my name is Amy Hamill. My business is Cowgirl Honey. mostly because I have cows and honey, and I needed a name. We call our place the Hamill Homestead, and we raise cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, chickens, ducks, geese, alpacas, the whole gamut. But we don't raise mushrooms to sell. They're just something I do on the side for fun. But to get started, let's look a little bit at defining a mushroom. And the study of mushrooms is mycology, from the Greek word mykes, meaning mushroom, and ology, the study of. So we'll look at how we're going to define these mushrooms. So first, mushrooms are classified in the kingdom fungi. And there's different kingdoms depending on where you're at in the world. There's 5 or 6. Basically, they're divided up whether they have a nuclei in their cells, whether they have a cell wall, whether they just have a membrane. So fungi are considered heterotrophic eukaryotes, which is a big term, meaning they have a nuclei in their cell and they don't make their own food. So they're heterotrophic. They have to get their food from another source. So they don't photosynthesize. But that doesn't separate them from plants, because plants, that does separate them, because plants have a nucleus in their cell, but they're autotrophic. They make their own food. But plants also have a cell wall, and fungi have a cell wall. The difference there being that the fungi have a chitinous cell wall. Chitin's the protein that's also found in exoskeletons of insects. So those are the key characteristics of what makes a fungi a fungi. When we're looking at whether we're talking about mushrooms or fungus, the mushroom that you see, such as this fairy ring here, these mushrooms growing along the edge, that's just the fruiting body of the organism. The entire fungus is underground, structures we call mycelium. And then when it goes to reproduce, it sends up the fruiting body. Fungi that don't form a fruiting body or a mushroom, but still put out those spores, that's our molds, like your rhizopus, the bread mold. So these classifications are kind of the nuts and bolts to figuring out what we're looking at. If we were working in a hardware store, we'd be in that section of putting the metric and the English and the brass and the stainless, all categorizing those. Biologists like to be splitters or lumpers. They're always classifying things. So we'll do a little bit of that with the mushrooms.
Amy?
Yes.
Are you supposed to be flipping through the slides, or are we? I just wanted to make sure that your slides were advancing.
I should be on the slide that says definition. Can you see that?
No, we just see the regular kind of in how you're in PowerPoint. Okay, now I can see it.
Okay. So I shouldn't
now
do
it
the
says
presentation?
mycology.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go and make it into the presentation.
Okay, if I'm making there's the presentation. Can you see that?
It hasn't expanded yet.
Okay.
Is there a share button on the top right under the X on the top right of the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Right there. Yeah. Click that share button.
How's that?
Nope.
Technical difficulties.
It's okay.
I'm a mycologist.
Let's see. Okay, go ahead and hit the X to the right of share so we can close that side window on that right-hand panel. Close that.
Okay.
And then we'll just, I'll let you know, I'll pop back on if I don't see your slides advancing.
Okay.
So just make sure you click on the left to go through each of the slides.
Okay, rather than that. Did that advance?
It's on mycology.
It didn't advance to definition?
No.
Okay. Should I just manually click it like that?
Yep, I think so.
Does that fill your screen?
No. But
so
that's
you're
okay.
seeing my side panel?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's okay. We
Okay.
can still see your slides though, so that's just fine.
Okay. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the definition. This picture here shows a fairy ring, which is actually the largest organism on the planet. Because what you don't see is underground there. That's all those, the growing body of the fungus underground. The largest organism in the world, they approximate at 2,300 acres, covering that amount of ground. And then the fruiting bodies come up on the edge. So they make up quite a bit of our ecosystem. So identification of mushrooms is important, whether you want to eat them or just study them, compare them. So let's look at a common mushroom that you'd find in the grocery store, the little white button mushrooms. We label these with as a species name. We call it Agaricus bisporus. That's the species of the mushroom you find in the grocery store. The genus of that is Agaricus. So the Agaricus mushroom, it's your classic mushroom looking with a stem and the cap. But the specific epithet is bisporus. A lot of times, this second name folks will refer to as species. That is not the species, that's the specific epithet. And why I'm so interested in terminology is because this is when you get into your identification books, it will help you understand what it's asking for, what name you're looking for in the manual. So the genus is the first word. The second word is a specific epithet. The whole thing together is your species name. It's Latin. We have a binomial nomenclature, meaning a two-name naming system. So it's always italicized because it's a different language. And the first letter in genus is always capitalized. The specific epithet is always lowercase. So if you see that, you know you're looking at the name of the organism. So I want you to know how to determine what you want to know. So how are you going to figure out what you're looking at? And I also want you to be confident in it. Know that you cannot get sick by just touching a mushroom. You have to ingest it. And a lot of the mushrooms that we consider poisonous, they might make you feel sick, but they're not going to kill you. There are some that are lethal, but they're not going to, even the lethal ones, you have to ingest. You can't get sick just by picking it up. Okay, so getting back to identification, one of the keys is a dichotomous key, where we use a two-system reference to figure out what we're looking at. Some of your identification manuals, the one on the previous slide, Mushrooms Demystified, he uses a dichotomous key. The National Audubon Society is an excellent reference on your field guides. It does not use that key. It just gives you a very specific, detailed description of the mushroom. So if you're not comfortable using a key, then maybe a field guide like the Audubon one is one that's for you. If you get comfortable using a key to figure out exactly what you're looking at, maybe a book like the Mushroom Demystified one would work. But for those who haven't used a dichotomous key before, I made a simple one using Smurfs just to kind of walk us through the process. So the reason I chose Smurfs, I don't know if you're familiar with the cartoon, but they live in mushrooms. And those mushrooms are actually the ammonites. Those are toxic, but they make for cute housing. So if we're following down this key, and Nancy, can you see my mouse?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so if we're following down this key, and we look at a Smurf that has white clothing, let's look at the Smurf here with the saw and the log and the red pencil in his ear. He doesn't have white clothing, so we're just going to ignore that line. Smurf that has colored clothing, yes, his overalls are blue, so we're going to follow that down to number 2. So we go down here to 2. Smurf has a white hat. Yes, he does have a white hat. So that we know is Handy Smurf. Now, let's choose this guy down here. He has colored clothing, just like the last one. We go down to 2, but he doesn't have a white hat. So we're going to jump down to the second part of 2. He has a colored hat. So now that tells us to jump to 3. He has no facial hair. Well, that must be Farmer Smurf, because it ends there. Let's look at the one up here with the blonde hair. She has white clothing. So we go down to 4. She has blonde hair. That's Smurfette. The last one, let's say they have white clothing. Tells us to go to 4, blonde hair with Smurfette. They have an object with glass. So you're looking at, this guy has glasses, this guy has a mirror. So then we jump to number 5. Smurf has a book. Well, that's this one. So that must be Brainy Smurf. Or the Smurf has a flower in this case. And that would be Vanity Smurf. So really simplified. I made this up. It's not set in stone as a regular scientific key would be, but I made it up so you could see how the flow works in a dichotomous key. Does anyone need me to go over that again? Do you want to try another one?
I'm not seeing anyone saying yes, so I think you're good to go. That was a great explanation.
Okay. So here, the terminology comes into part on that dichotomous key, because they're going to use the terms in the key that label the mushroom. They're not going to say it's on a stalk with an umbrella on top of it. It's going to use specific terms. And in fungi, we have different terms for each part. So first off is the hyphae. Those are the filamentous strands that make up the whole structure of the fungi. And when a group of hyphae is all combined together, we call that mycelium. So you'll see mycelium a lot in reference to in the soil, the mycorrhizae in the soil, that's fungi in the roots. You'll see those terms. The cap is the top of the mushroom. And that can be different. It can be smooth. It can have scales. It can be slimy. So different types of caps. The gills are structures underneath the cap that bear the spores. So they're super thin, but they hold all the spores, the reproductive structures. Pores are another structure under the cap that's going to hold the spores, but they're not found on the same mushroom like this. This is an artist rendition to show you the different parts. It will either have gills or pores if it's that type of mushroom. It won't have both like this is showing. The spores are the reproductive units of the fungi. Those come into importance when we look at the color of the spore. So sometimes if you're trying to identify a mushroom and you're down to it's one or the other based on the kind of the spores, you might have to wait until that mushroom matures enough that you can tell the spore. Sometimes they are that close. The spore print is when you take the cap off of the mushroom and just put it on a piece of paper and let the spores drop out, and that will show you the color of those spores. The stipe is the stem or the stalk of the mushroom. We call that the stipe. Some keys do refer to it as the stem. The annulus is this ring structure around the stipe, and that may or may not be present. That's another identifying factor if that is present. And the vulva is this cup structure at the base. Most of them have it. Whether you see it or not is another identifying feature. Some of your mushrooms, like your paddy straws, have a very pronounced vulva. Some you can hardly see it at all. It breaks off with the mycelium underground. So the key to using a dichotomous key is to know the terminology. The good news is you don't have to memorize this. Most of the field books have a glossary in the back so that you can look up those terms. So here's an actual dichotomous key for fungi. This is the website link if you want to go find that key. And my slides are busy. That's on purpose so that you can go back to this talk and reference any of these websites, any of the books I mentioned. You can look them up. Feel free to go through it and find out those materials for yourself. So if we look here over on an actual dichotomous key, it's asking me, does it have free gills, attached gills, notched gills, decurrent gills? So those are all different types of what the gill might look like physically, not counting the color of the gill. Here it's asking if it has that cup at the base, the vulva, or if it doesn't. It's asking if the cap is dry, is it scaly? It's asking if there is an annulus, that ring around the stipe. So each one of those, whether it's present or absent, will take you to the next spot. In this particular one, it's just an excerpt out of a key, but it mentions it has a vulva, then we know it's an Amanita. Amanita is that classic white mushroom, the red cap and the white spots on it that you see in a lot of literature, old drawings. I used it on my cover page slide just because it's so recognizable. It is also poisonous. So that's how you would use an actual mushroom key. You go through it and look at those qualities. One really big quality is on the stem itself. Is it fibrous and hard to break, or is it brittle and cracks open like chalk? So don't be afraid to damage your mushroom if you're trying to determine what it is. Usually mushrooms grow in more than one, so you have more to look at. There's a lot of common mimics of the mushrooms that we like to collect, such as your morels, they have mimics. Your chanterelles, there's mimics for those. So identification is key. If you're unsure, just enjoy it, take a picture of it, but don't eat it. There are 7,000 cases of mushroom poisoning annually in the US. Now, only 10% of those are severe, so about 700 are really severe cases, and there's 3 fatalities per year on average in the US. So it does occur, but the biggest way to avoid it is, if you're unsure, just don't eat it. So some of those common mimics, one of the biggest ones, and probably most important because it is lethal, is the paddy straw mushroom versus the death cap mushroom. And paddy straw has that pronounced vulva, so its scientific name is Vulvariella vulvacea. And this one down here is the paddy straw, an artist rendition. I had trouble finding a picture of one actually growing. They were all in the kitchen. But you can see that defined cup. Well, the death cap is also in the Amanita family. It's not a red cap. It doesn't have those little white specks on the cap, but it is in that family, and it makes that very distinct vulva. So here's a mushroom. They both make very distinct vulvas. One is extremely edible, and one is extremely toxic. Their button stage is similar, the button stage being before it becomes a tall mushroom. It looks like a little buttons poking out of the ground. They're very similar, and that's the stage people like to collect it to eat. So in this case, if you're unsure, you want to have a mature mushroom to collect with it, or just avoid it, as the sign warning people tells you to do. They've obviously had problems in this area. One of the big differences that the ammonite, the death cap, is always going to have white gills and a white spore print, whereas the paddy straw has pink, brownish gills and a pink spore print. The annulus, that ring around the stipe, that is very pronounced in the death cap. In the paddy straw, it's non-existent. That's not to say you have a death cap that lost its annulus somehow. It got ripped off. Maybe there was a stick next to it as it emerged and ripped it off. So make sure you check more than one mushroom to be certain. Also, the distribution. The paddy straw mushroom is mostly found in Southeast Asia. It, as its name implies, grows in the straw of the rice paddy fields. The death cap is found almost worldwide, except for in Southeast Asia. So most of your poisonings are people who've grown up with paddy straws, They move to another area, they see something similar and don't see those key features, the spore color, the gill color, the annulus, or they only look at the immature stage of the mushroom. So look at all the stages of the mushroom's life cycle to be sure that you know what you have. Another common one we love to collect in the Pacific Northwest are the chanterelles, and these are delicious, probably because they have a good firm texture, nice mild flavor. Let's be honest, mushrooms are just a good mode of transferring butter, but they have a very, very clean, unique taste as far as mushrooms. They're not too earthy. But they have a lot of mimics. One of those is called the gomphus. So to tell those apart, the chanterelle has this smooth, wavy cap. It's got crisp gills. Those gills are actually false gills. They're like protrusions from the stipe, and they're hard. You can't just rub them off. Whereas a true gill would be that really feathery, thin membrane that just rubs right off, like you see in your store mushrooms. So they've got those crisp false gills, but they're in nice, neat ridges. The gomphus tends to be kind of rubbery. It's got a scaly cap. It has false gills like the chanterelle, so they don't rub right off, but they're irregular. They grow in all sorts of patterns, almost like they were smashed on there. And so my favorite way to tell the difference between the two is to cut them open. I'm always mutilating mushrooms, it seems. But the chanterelle will be nice and clean and white inside. The gomphus, 99% of the time you cut that open, it will have maggots inside. And you might want the extra protein, but I don't like it that much. So I stick with the chanterelles, cut them open. If they're nice and white inside, probably have a chanterelle. But there is another mimic to the chanterelle that's called the Hygrophorapsis. It looks a lot like a chanterelle, and as it ages, it gets more of that funnel shape. Here's young ones, they look more like a mushroom. This one's starting to age, starting to look more funneled like the chanterelle up here. So again, the chanterelle has those false gills. The Hygrophorapsis has true gills. They will scrape right off. This one tends to also have a darker orange color, and the orange almost gets like a bullseye. It gets darker as it goes toward the center of the cap, whereas the chanterelle will be a uniform, more yellow color all throughout. When you cut the Hygrophorapsis open, it will also be orange on the inside. It won't have that nice white interior. And we had talked earlier in the dichotomous key area about the stipe and the terminology. If you take a chanterelle and snap the stalk, it's fibrous. It almost breaks open and has strands like string cheese. Whereas the Hygrophorapsis, you break it open, it'll snap like a piece of chalk. That's a very key point on distinguishing these two. And lastly, the chanterelle has a sweet, kind of a fruity smell. Some have likened it to apricots, whereas the Hygrophorapsis, the false chanterelle, is going to be more earthy, kind of a musty smelling mushroom. And the last mimic I want to cover, there's lots of edible mushrooms. We could go into lion's manes and chicken of the woods and wood ears and oysters and all those fun things. But these kind of are the basics, kind of gives you an understanding of what to look for in the different ones, how to tell the difference. So I'm just going to cover one more, and that's the morel. Morels are one of my favorites, but there are a lot of mimics for morels. We kind of lump them all together and call them false morels. I've listed two. There's two more that I can think of, and there's probably a couple more that I'm unaware of. But your true morel is it's actually what we call an ascomycota, because it forms its reproductive structures in a cup. And so your true morel is going to have, it's a bunch of cups fused together on the top. That's how it reproduces. It's going to have a hollow stem. You cut that thing open, it's always hollow. And its cap, per se, because it's not a true mushroom, it's a fruiting body that looks like a mushroom, its cap will be attached to that stipe. Whereas if we look into false morels, their cap is going to be not a bunch of cups put together. It's more of a smushed, wrinkled pattern. It doesn't have those good ridges. And if we look at the base of the cap here, chances are it's attaching somewhere up here. It's attached to the stipe, but it's more like a skirt hanging down. It's not attached at the bottom. And the other thing is the false morels will not be hollow when you cut them open. Now the verpa, which is this one over here on the right and the one on the left, those look similar to a morel, especially in this stage. This one you could say, well, maybe it just got blocked by a rock as it was emerging and kind of got deformed. But that is actually what those look like. So you don't want to be fooled by a deformation. Again, find more than one representation. But you cut those open, they'll have almost a cotton-filled interior. And this one, the gyromitra, some people refer to them as brains. I know people that like to eat these. Some people get an upset stomach from them, some don't. So I just avoid them and stick with the true morels. But these will have a pith-filled center. Pith is like when you break open a corn stalk and it's got that styrofoam interior. That's known as pith. So their center will have something in it. It won't be hollow like a morel. Again, it's going to have that cap that's not fully attached, and the cap is wrinkled. It's not like a bunch of cups stacked together. Some say that the key identification is time of year, but morels, you can get white morels and black morels. And the blacks can come in spring or fall, depending on your climate. They can overlap a little. The whites are typically found more in the spring, but again, it depends on the climate, the altitude, and what that year has looked like. So the time of year isn't the best indicator of whether it's true or false. And again, the false ones can mimic the same time of year. They can be out. One thing to mention too is what substrate is that mushroom growing on. Be careful. I've heard that if a mushroom is growing on wood, it's safe. That is not true. And the other thing is, it could be growing on wood. It's an identification feature, but it doesn't mean it's safe to eat. So it could be growing on wood, but that piece of wood could be buried under some humus, some leaves, some forest detritus. So you don't really know for sure until you dig it up and check for certain what it's growing on to identify it. But don't let that feature be whether it's safe or not. Okay, so mushroom uses. The first thing I have listed there is aesthetics. I think mushrooms are fascinating. One of my favorite authors is Taylor Lockwood, and he has spent his life photographing mushrooms around the world. These are all his images. When I first found out that mushrooms glow in the dark, I was fascinated. Apparently someone in the Postal Service was as well. Just an amazing work. So I have his website listed later. If you want to look some of his stuff up, he's got mushrooms listed by color, by scientific name, by location. So a wealth of knowledge there. But just for art, just a beautiful representation of the diversity of mushrooms. Another thing we can use mushrooms for is dyes. I know there's a lot of fiber enthusiasts in the group. Mushrooms, some of them keep their color true when they're used as a dye. And you would take a bowl, if you don't know if it can be used as a dye, just pour hot water over it. If your water becomes colored, you can use that to dye your fiber. And this is a website that entirely has dyes made from fungi. I have hyperlinks on here. I'm not sure if when the presentation is uploaded, if you can use them, but there is also a separate page listing the different websites. This one's mycopigments.com, and it shows you how to find them, what to use, which ones make what colors. It's a really neat site. And the fungiphoto.com is the link to the treasures from the kingdom fungi. So another use of mushrooms, besides aesthetics, is medicine. And this book over here, the Mycelial Healer, is one that I found on the Chelsea Green site, and I'm looking into that one. I have not seen that book, but it looks very interesting. Comprehensive Guide to the Cultivation and Traditional Uses of Medicinal Mushrooms. There's more and more research coming out all the time on mushrooms used on cancer. One of those sites is realmushrooms.com, and they have a group of mushrooms called the 5 Defenders. And just if you're interested in mushrooms themselves, on the healing properties, you can go in there and it talks about the different types of mushrooms and what they're used for. And another one that's of interest to me with my Cowgirl Honey is the honeybee health. They're using mushrooms to help combat different viruses within the hive, a natural way of taking care of the honeybees. This slide here shows a picture of just the benefits of mushrooms. High in B vitamins, high in potassium, copper, selenium, complex carbohydrates, and fiber. What they don't have is they're fat-free. They're let's see if I can pull that up. They're low in calories, they're cholesterol free, sodium free, or low in sodium. Like I say, they're a good medium for butter, so that kind of negates that, but they are a good source of some of those nutrients. And lastly, we think of mushrooms to eat. So they're a good source of food. We talk about cultivated mushroom recipes and wild mushroom recipes. The links to these sites give you a couple, and I'll talk a little bit more about where I found those sites. These are 3 of my favorite mushroom cookbooks. Not only do they talk about how to use the mushrooms in cooking, but they do go through some identification processes on the mushrooms. First, the cultivated mushrooms. That was put out by the Mushroom Council. It's from southeastern Pennsylvania. They have a whole list of recipes there. And then the wild mushroom recipes link I have here is from a mycological group in California. And some of those are now defunct, but they've collected all the recipes from years gone by and have categorized them there. So that's a good site to find some wild mushroom recipes. So speaking of wild mushrooms, you can forage for your mushrooms, identify them based on your dichotomous key, your field guide, know your season, your climate. It changes across the country. It changes from year to year. And also the substrate. Remember I said sometimes you have to dig them up to actually see what that mushroom is growing on. Remember, the fungi is the entire organism. The mushroom is just the fruiting body for reproduction. This website here is a good one. Let's see if I click on that, I can't. Did that take you to the website, Nancy? I don't know if we have Nancy, but that hyperlink, the best mushroom identification, this lady gives you some tips on mushroom books in different areas of the country that are her favorites for that particular area. So that's a handy guide. She also has different articles on identifying different types, like foliates, which are the ones that have the pores underneath that cap. Lots of good information there on that site. Growing mushrooms, I had no idea that. I knew Pennsylvania grew a lot of mushrooms, but it turns out that one county in Pennsylvania grows 70% of the mushrooms for the entire US. And in the United States, we produce about 320,000 tons of mushrooms annually. Most of those are that Agaricus bisporus, which is your white button mushroom in the store, which is also the same species for cremini and portobello. The creminis are a brown strain of it, but it's still the same species, the Agaricus bisporus. portobello's the same species, just allowed to get bigger. It's that same brown strain as cremini. They just grow it bigger. If you don't want to identify mushrooms, but you still love different mushrooms, grow kits are available. And a lot of people grow their own, whether in their yard or even on your countertop in your kitchen. Grow kits are kind of a fun thing for getting some diversity of mushrooms. Different resources. We mentioned the field guides, so you can find some. The one that the Mushrooms Demystified was also by this author, David Aurora. He kind of has a fun take on his descriptions of mushrooms, but he does use that dichotomous key. You can find field guides that don't have that just tell you specifically what you should be looking at. And if you don't see those features, you're probably on the wrong mushroom. Textbooks. This is the textbook I had in mycology. They can be more technical and they can focus a lot. Like, this isn't your classical mushroom. It's a sporangiophore. This is actually Pilobolus, which is dung fungi. So they focus on everything mycology, not just your mushrooms, but they can be helpful for terminology and for some identification. And lastly, my favorite book is the cookbooks to tell you about different recipes and ways to use those mushrooms. Other resources are your local mycology clubs. I've listed 3 here. I listed the Puget Sound Mycological Society because that's one of the biggest in the US. So when you go on their website, they have different resources for identification. They have recipes. They have ways to join, ways to get involved. If you're not in that area, just type in your region. I did this one as an example. I put Eastern Pennsylvania, and this mushroom club came up. But also what came up with that was a Western Pennsylvania mushroom club, a Philadelphia mushroom club. So you can search by your region. It might give you something more specific, but most areas have some type of mushroom club around them. This one here, MycoWeb, that's that one from California. They were a big mycological society, and they've gone entirely online now. So that's where you can find all your resources on identification and a lot of the recipes. Another resource is your grow kits. One local here is Fortunato Farms, and I love talking with Joseph. He is passionate about growing mushrooms, and he has offered me to share his email with you. If you have questions about growing your mushrooms, he's happy to walk you through it. He sells grow kits. If you go to their website, it shows the different mushrooms that he offers, and it also has descriptions of each of those types of mushrooms. Other websites, as Nancy told us, was the Chelsea Green Publishing, which has 35% off for VIPs. If we go to their site, you might think, well, that's just looking up books. But what I did, I went to their website, I typed in mushrooms in the search bar, and it brought up some mushroom books. I also tried typing in mycological, I typed in fungi. The best return I got was when I just typed in mushroom. So I'm scrolling through their mushroom books, and then I scrolled down, and they have a whole slew of articles on mushrooms, whether it's how to grow them in wood chips, how to make beer with them, how to become a shiitake farmer. So instead of just books, they have articles and resources on different topics. So that's a fun site. And lastly, the fungiphoto.com. That's the author that did the Kingdom fungi, all about them. And I didn't hyperlink that, but if you go to that site, he has all the different images that he's taken around the world, and he also has DVDs, and they're pretty fun about the different types of mushrooms, the poisonous ones, how they grow, and things such as that. I listed several books here on this page, even though this isn't the resource book page, but I listed them because these are all books that I found on the Chelsea Green Publishing website that looked interesting related to mushrooms. All right, and with that, are there any questions?
All right, can you hear me, Amy?
I can.
Okay, I don't know what happened but with my audio, but perfectly timing. I don't know why, but you sound like Smurfette. So it's going really fast and high pitched. So you could go ahead and stop sharing your screen, and then it'll just take us back. There you go. So let's see. I do have some questions. So Sandy had posed a question on our Mighty Networks page over the past couple weeks. And she said, I have a dedicated raised bed for mushrooms. When I first started, I was successful. I redid the bed this season with new fertilizer, wood, and straw, but got very little return. I'm hoping to find out what I did wrong. Do you have any resources or recommendations as far as for our ladies for growing mushrooms that you would want to suggest?
My first one would be that Fortunato Farms, because that's someone you can talk with in person that grows a lot of mushrooms. Also that Eastern Pennsylvania Mycological Society, they show you how they grow them commercially. My guess with that is because the mushroom's a fruiting body, when you redid the bed, you took up all that mycelium. So not only, so the actual organism itself. So now that the mushrooms per se are starting over, so they have to regrow that mycelium to get to the stage where they can send up a fruiting body. So you may have inoculated it with spores, but it's not at the stage where it's ready to produce a lot. It might just produce a few. It could also be, depending on the medium you used, something's inhibiting them. Maybe it was a too strong a fertilizer or something that's not quite conducive to growth. A lot of variables there, but does that help?
Yeah, I think that was a really good answer. Okay, and then Kate had posed that she was a fairly new forager and wanted to learn more about identifying edibles versus lookalikes, and she was joining us today. So I think that's good that you really went through, and this really isn't teaching people how to identify, but more of you really went over. I was super uneducated about mushrooms, but now I feel like if I went and got the books or went to some training, you went over the basics of all the different parts of the mushrooms and things to look for. So I felt it was very informative as far as giving me a good jump start, because I know we have the chanterelles and the morels up here where I live too. And I think it would be really interesting to get into. So it was very helpful information.
Good.
So the next one, Joanna had mentioned that there is Anne Marie Bella. The forager chick is a mushroom specialist and forager expert who lives in Walton County, Georgia, and is a published author and even a cookbook and has classes. And I think that's a great resource for a lot of our chapters in the Georgia area. So I don't know if you've heard about her.
I have not, but yes, anytime you can find something local like that, or if they give classes, the more you get out and look at them, the more you start to see the differences. You don't have to break them apart every time, because you can just identify them right off the bat, just because you see them so often. Yeah, so that's a great resource. If she could provide that with the other link, like she has a cookbook. Maybe
yeah,
you could add
I'll
that to the
see
list.
if I could link the information. It is in the chat or in the comments on one of the ones that we posted on the Mighty Networks, but I could also put that on there as well. And I don't know if she's a member of the Ladies Homestead Gathering, or if this is just one of their kind of more local, like you up here in North Idaho, that this is their mushroom expert down in that area.
Right.
Can you grow mushrooms inside and or in a small space? Please share tips and easiest to start growing as beginners.
Absolutely, you can grow them inside. Your oyster mushrooms, those grow inside on a counter. Some people do lion's mane and reishi on a counter. Shiitakes tend to like it outside better. We've tried them inside. You get a log and an inoculated log. They just don't seem to thrive. They like it outside better. Depending on how you get your spore kit, some of them just come kind of as a insulation material, and you one of the best things to do is just take boiling water and pour it over cardboard. It kind of sterilizes your cardboard, gets it good and wet, let that cool off, and then put your insulative material that's been inoculated on top of the cardboard, put more wet cardboard on top of that, and just keep it moist. Mist it 2-3 times a day, depending on your climate. South Georgia, you might not need to mist it at all. And then just kind of monitor it, and they'll just grow on your kitchen counter. You can have mushrooms there.
That's fascinating. I didn't know you could grow them inside as simply as that.
So you can either do the insulation kits, or the Fortunato Farms, he sells his kits as like a little block, and it's inoculated, and you just set that in a pan and mist it a couple times.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Are there any mushroom identification apps that you would recommend?
I haven't moved into this century yet. So as far as apps, I haven't used any. I'm sure there's some really good ones out there. But I'm a book person. I'm hard copy. So I don't know of any to recommend.
That is quite all right. And then the last question I had is, do you make mushroom coffee? And if so, what kind would you use? I've been interested in this.
I haven't made any personally. Some people like the reishi mushrooms for its earthy taste. I have dehydrated mushrooms and just ground them up into a powder to throw into soups and stews and things just for the flavor. So I don't see why you couldn't just add that to some coffee, or just by itself. In the Civil War, they used acorns for coffee, so it might not taste like you're expecting, but just pick your favorite. I'd probably pick a chanterelle and dry it down and grind it up, because it's not so earthy.
Yeah. Sounds like it might taste really good. Have to try that. So let's see. Gabrielle said she recommended a Martha tent. That's what she started with, and was take to grow several pounds in her living room. And then Gloria said she has a book called Mushrooming with Confidence that talks about mostly 25 of the most popular mushrooms and a checklist to make sure you are correct. And the author is Alexander Schwab. And Gabrielle also said, FYI, dehydrating mushrooms doesn't extract the beta glucans and terpenes.
Right. Yes, it doesn't always extract that. And also, it's a myth that cooking mushrooms, morels, you want to cook those, saute them a little before you eat them. But like your death caps, cooking them does not get rid of the toxin. So it doesn't destroy the bad stuff either.
That's really important to know.
Yes.
All right, Amy, well, I want to thank you so much for coming on and providing an education for us all on just different parts of the mushrooms and things to look at, and all of the available resources out there for us to do our own, research and learning, so we make sure that we're foraging and getting the right mushroom and cooking that. So anyway, thank you so much for your presentation today. And I just want to let everyone know that we will be back for our final National Virtual Gathering for the year. It'll be on November 5th, and our host is, our speaker is going to be Cassidy Cornell with the Halftime Homestead, and she's going to be sharing everything about how to order chicks, set up a brooder, and get everyone started on their chicken journey. So anyway, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and I hope to see you all back here next month. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.